Good morning, YouTube. I'm here with my 2002 Ford F-150 today, and we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the things you can expect when you do an intake manifold job on one of these. I apologize for any noise in the background. It is a little windy this morning, and I got my house air conditioning running not far from me, so you'll probably hear some noise in the background. So, one of the common things on these trucks is the intake manifold cracks, and you get a coolant leak somewhere here on the right side of the engine. In my case, it was leaking right here at the water area where the coolant crossover goes into, filling up the valley of the engine block and causing frequent coolant loss in the vehicle. So obviously in this case everything has been removed. I think this is about as far down into the state of disassembly as you should really get. Some of the things to look for while you're in here, obviously make sure that the coolant pipe that goes from the water pump to the back of the block, this thing here, is not rusted or leaking in any way. So in this case, I think somebody tried to remove this thing at one time without removing the bolts. The end there is all marred up. The O-rings on the what they call a nipple right there were fairly compacted in and worn out. And so what made me check it out was after I've got the intake manifold off and most disassembly done, this little pit right here kept filling up with coolant, and that was with the water pipe and everything still attached. So coolant was actually coming from the heater core right here down this tube through the metal tube, and it was leaking right at that nipple, and so it kept filling up that pit, and so I kept cleaning it out, and it just kept filling back up. And that was after I removed the intake manifold and already drained most of the coolant out of the truck. So anyway, I got a new pipe coming, and of course the new O-rings. Of course, you would be foolish not to do this job and not change the spark plugs. So make sure those tubes or the areas for the spark plugs are nice and clean. Last thing you want is, you know, doing your spark plugs and crud falls down into the engine. Keep the ports, you know, port areas nice and clean. Do your gasket cleaning. One thing I did find too is on my knock sensor, the cable end here is badly corroded, so I got a new knock sensor coming. And of course, check right here your PCV elbow, make sure that's in good condition. This one was replaced fairly recently, so but those do tend to go bad as well. Some of the other things to look for right here, for these two rubber tubes here, those go to your DPFE sensor, and this one is good. As you can tell, this one broke when I was removing the DPFE sensor, so that tube may not be any good if it broke that easily. So those are available just about any part store, and I've heard you're not supposed to use just typical rubber hose. You have to actually use something rated for fuel vapors and all. But if you go to the parts store, they're readily available for that specific purpose. Some of the other things to look for, just general cleaning. While it's all apart, now's a good time to clean up everything as best you can. And in that way, if you have a leak in the future, it's just much easier to spot when everything's all nice and clean. I'll see if I can post some before pictures when I first got all this apart, how sludged up all of this was from the constant fuel and not fuel, but coolant and oil leaks.